No problem. Not a problem.
Yes.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for tuning in. My name is Hans. I'm the founder and CEO of FAB9. And in this series, Show and Tell, Bernardo and I, we talk to interesting people. It used to be in the maker space and we would have some drinks and nibbles. Now we move online. But then the advantage of going digital is that we actually connect with makers and interesting people from around the country. So Pat is joining us from I think New South Wales. I looked up the address. That was actually Queensland. So Pat, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
So I think tonight, Bernardo probably be the main person to lead the conversation. And I think, yeah, so Bernardo and Pat, please take it away.
You're welcome. It's delightful to be here. I'm thrilled to be invited. So I'm sorry, I missed that. What did you say? Talk about myself. Introduce myself. Yes, Pat Gregory from Woodwork for Women. I also teach men as well, so I'm not exclusive, but I've been doing that for 25 years in Mullumbimby in northern New South Wales near Byron Bay. Most people know Byron Bay. And teaching is my passion, but teaching beginners is my passion. And that's what I've been doing for so long. Yeah.
Yeah,
They've built their own houses. Some of them have built their own houses and fitted them out. There's a woman at the moment doing her kitchen. She's one of my first students about 20 years ago.
wow.
And she's making a kitchen out of rosewood that she's recycled, and she's got a beautiful home, and she's done it all on the back of just starting with a very small project. And you just don't know where it's going to lead you when you start putting your hands on wood. You never know where it's going to go.
So there are only 20.
How did I start? I was a beginner. I started in Bristol in the UK in 1984. I was 30 years old and I was a bit bored with my life and wanted a bit of excitement. So I saw a little ad in the paper that said Woodwork for Women evening classes. And I thought, oh, I'd always wanted to do something like that. I'd been brought up on a farm with two brothers, and the brothers went out fishing and hunting, and they had guns and knives and really exciting things that girls weren't allowed to touch. And when this course came up, I thought, how exciting. Like, I get to touch some woodworking tools. So I went along, and it was in a ladies' lounge room on the first floor of her little flat. And that was really surprising to me, because I was looking for the big white workshop with the fantastic jointer and all the machinery. And there were some women just very calmly doing woodwork with hand tools and smelling the beautiful pine that was coming off with the plane, and using chisels and hand tools really inspired me. So I got some training, and it went from there. It was just the experience of having seen all these tools, and then finally working with them was very exciting. And in those days, training was really big in the UK, so I was able to get a 4-year apprenticeship squished into a very short course, and I went along and got trained as a carpenter joiner. And I was on that course with 12 lads, and they were like 21, just doing the first. And that was a proper workshop. Not many power tools, but hand tools. And it was there I got inspired to teach, because the way of teaching there was sink or swim. This is how you do it. We'd be shown how to do it, and then the teacher would leave the room, and that was it. And I did a lot of sinking because I couldn't figure out things. The boys seemed to get it a little bit more than me, but they struggled as well. And I think that's when I thought, oh, I'm sure there's some gaps here that I could fill in. So after my course, I loved it, because I did roofing and staircasing. I made a full-size roof, and made the walls and openings for the doors. I made a door out of some wood off the back of the lorry that we had to unload that afternoon, lots of splinters. So it was an amazing experience. I got so much out of that workshop. And when I fell into a teaching job later, I realised I didn't know the questions to ask when I was learning. And it was that experience that led me to fill in all the gaps for my students. And when I noticed what a difference it made to tell someone what body position to use, and listening to the sound of the tool and the smells and the joy of woodwork, I noticed what an enormous difference it made to their learning experience. And they caught on a lot faster than I did when I was learning. So that was the part of the love of teaching that developed from that. Um, I just think it's a little bit old school. My teacher was a retired builder, so he was probably only had 5 years to go before he retired. It was sort of a fill-in job. He was very knowledgeable. He was a very kind person, but he didn't have the vocabulary to be able to tell me what I needed to know, and I didn't know the questions to ask. So it was out of lack of skills as a teacher, I guess. And it was a means to an end for him, I think. Whereas I love my teaching. That's what I live for. I love woodwork, but teaching and imparting it the best way I can is my jam, I guess. And there's still a little bit about out there. It's, as I said, it's very old school. Young people won't tolerate it anymore, which is great. And they'll ask questions, and they're willing to put themselves out there to find out the answers to a specific question. But there's there's still people that will hang back. And in my workshop, when I can feel them starting to peep out and go to them, think to themselves, oh, actually, I can ask anything. There's no question that is stupid or not very smart. Nobody is going to go, oh, we all know that. And having that safety in a workshop is paramount. And in a classroom, in a situation, people need to feel safe and they need to feel connected. And you can create that in a small group. It's a bit harder with a big group, but I'm sure there's talented teachers out there that can do it with bigger groups. Excuse me. There are many. There's a lot of students been through in 25 years, as you can imagine. You mean what did they encounter during the workshop or when they left the workshop with the skills? What do you mean during the workshop? Well, when a student has been through my 3-day workshop, a beginner's workshop, they're then eligible to go on to further workshops. And I've had an advanced class, what we call a regular class or an advanced class, that's been running for the 25 years. And some of my students have been coming for 15 years. And that's huge. That's a testimony to how much they adore. When a student has been through my 3-day workshop, them have workshops of their own at home, but they still come every Monday to this class because of the camaraderie. And we have people on that course who are almost the opposite. They do woodwork in almost opposite ways. One will do woodwork, they want to use recycled timber, not much joinery, screw it together, shabby chic, very rustic and a quick result. And I have another student who will spend hours measuring and marking out and doing inlay that they've learnt somewhere else and brought it and made a box and not just any old box, but a beautifully mitered, incredibly detailed box. And they'll take a lot of pride in that. So I love having all the different varieties of experiences of how people experience woodwork right under my nose. And but people can have, in the beginner's workshop, I've had people I've got some little steps, sit on the step and cry because they've been so frustrated at not being able to do it perfectly. And in my workshop, there's no such thing as perfect. Where there's excellence, we'll strive for excellence, but perfect doesn't really get voted in our workshop because it's so debilitating when people go for perfection. But we do talk about excellence and how we'll work towards excellence and how that's quite different from perfection. And I've got a poem about it and stuff like that. And having chatted to this young woman who is from the UK, I found that it was a pattern that ran through all her life, was striving for this particular outcome. And it crippled her not to be able to go any further if it wasn't at this expectation that she had. And this happened right in the middle of the workshop. So she was able to, we talked about it, and there was a lot of listening on my part. And she was able to make some sort of breakthrough and come back to that piece and continue it, not perfectly, and finish it. And I've never seen such a big transformation in someone's whole demeanor and personality. And she wrote to me later from the UK and said how transformative it had been, that she just was able to get over that hurdle of this idea of perfectionism, and it just changed her life. And those moments for me are, you know, magical. They're the ones, they're the gold that I love, because it's not just changing somebody's life in the workshop, it's also changing their outside life as well. And yeah, I love creating a sense of fun and relaxation at the workshop, so people don't find that pressure of what we get in the outside world of do, must be like this. This is the standard. This is what you're working towards. Everyone has their own journey and they experience in different ways. And so I see people have all sorts of experiences and go on to make, you know, the deck on their house, the verandas. They'll make all the furniture for their children's homes, or one mum came to me and did her little first project over 3 days, and then she made a dining room table. And the dining room table was made exactly for her family, the right height, and obviously, and the right how many people she had in her family, and then it wouldn't fit through the front door, and they had to take the lining off the front door to get it in. And she was so excited. And the whole family was so excited because mummy's table was coming home and it wouldn't fit through the door. And it was such a ta-da moment. So all of those memories are in other families. Like there's ripples on a pond that will go out from the experiences that people have. And that, you know, and she went on to make each child a bed, each child a desk as they got older for high school, all the furniture, the coffee tables and all of that. And that's pretty amazing when you see your mum do something like that. She had sons and daughters as well, but they're really special moments because they transform people's lives. And yeah. Say that again. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's very special. I was teaching in Bristol for a couple of years and then came back to Australia with a new husband and baby and went back to Melbourne to live where I was brought up. Forgot all about woodwork and came up to Mullumbimby 25 years ago. And I was involved with a company selling water filters and magnets. And we went away a lot and I did lots of seminars. And I thought I wanted to be a consultant. And luckily for me, the company sends you to personal development courses, they were called then. This was in the early 2000s. No, early 90s. And I had an aha moment when one of my upline said to me, Pat, whenever you talk about woodwork, you light up. But when I talk about water filters, I'm in my business tone and I'm this and I'm that, and I know all my stuff. But when you talk about woodwork, you light up. And I had this amazing aha moment that, well, maybe I could go back to teaching. Maybe I could teach woodwork here. And so that's when that was very transformative for me. And I put a little ad in the paper, woodwork for women, and 4 women came. And those days, it was 1 day a week for 8 weeks. I think they paid $100. And they made a cabinet all by hand with housing joints and rebate joints by hand. And then they did mortise and tenons in a door. And then they hung the door on that cabinet. and then they made whatever they wanted to in that, whether it be stained glass or something, or a painting, or whatever they wanted to do themselves in that. And that was transformative, to see what they could do one day a week for 8 weeks, and their photos of these proud women with their cabinets was just like, really? I'd forgotten how expansive it made me feel. I think a lot of people say they're terrified of the power tools. It's really big, and that's my favourite bit of teaching power tools, because I can see someone go from a 0 to a 10 in the half an hour talk that I do about power tools. If I can tell you a story about a woman who I was talking about the drop saw and going through the motions and that sort of thing, and I did my usual talk about it, and she started to cry, and she said, I won't be able to, sorry, I hadn't done my talk. I won't be able to use the drop saw, I'm terrified, and started to cry. And I said, that's fine, you can, she said, I'll just watch. And I said, okay. So I did my talk. That's when I did my talk. And I said, who'd like to go first? And she said, I will. And I said, what? And she said, I want to go first. And I said, okay. And she said it was totally the talk that I gave. I talked her off the ledge, basically. And that's what I do. It's really important to understand that about people and power tools. It's not a rational thing. It's an irrational feeling because of all the stories we get. And she got on that drop saw, and she went home that week. The following weekend, she made a day bed with her neighbour with a circular saw, a drop saw or something. And I really, my head was spinning. I was going, this is the same woman that was paralysed and terrified. And it's all about perspective, about tools. And I think another thing that stops people is they might think they're too old, or they might think they're too weak. I mean, I'm an older woman in a petite body, and if I can do it, anyone can do it. And at the moment, I'm volunteering on a tiny house build. So that means up on scaffolding and doing stuff. You know, if you're able-bodied to it, you can do it. And even if you're not, we've had someone who had she had hearing loss, she had sight loss, she had a lot of trouble in her body, and she managed. She was in her mid-70s, and she managed to do this joyfully, to do the workshop. So I think people think because they have an injury or whatever that they can't do it. There's lots of reasons. Women will still come to me today and say at school they were told they weren't allowed to do woodwork, or it was for the boys, or the class was full of boys and they were welcome, but it was too intimidating because the room was full of boys, and that's hard when you're one or two girls in that situation. So there are many, but I think the power tools is a big one. So just by accident, I met someone who was working towards getting a team of people together to build a tiny home for someone who was homeless in the area. And I said, oh, can I come? So I was lucky enough to be there right at the beginning. They already had a trailer. So the organisation's called One Roof Byron, and they're in their second year. And they're having an open day on Sunday, which is very exciting. If you're in the Byron area, come and see us. And the idea, the person who is running it, the idea was that we build one house at a time, instead of trying to get a whole bunch of people and organised in a whole bunch of tiny houses. Just build one for one person. And that's how it's evolved. And the recipient is now helping us with the build and the design. And because he's a jeweler, he's got plenty of ideas. And because we've got no foreman as such cracking a whip, we're all volunteers, so we're not paid by the hour. There's no one on the clock. It's the most joyful, funny, relaxed thing we could do. And we've got skills between us all. None of us know everything, but together we figure it out. And there's just 6 of us, 3 women, 3 men, and another 2 or 3 that are floating. And we just do that once a week for 4 hours on a Tuesday. And we now have a tiny house that's almost ready, almost at lockup. We've got to put the windows and doors in, and then we'll do the joinery. So it's the most wonderful project for not only us as a volunteer team, but for the recipient, because we're all friends and he is involved in a lot of the decisions. Can you imagine what that's like for someone who has lost the life they used to have through homelessness? Yeah. 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 And to have him be involved in the build, I think is the key, because it's about he's able to contribute and to his home and have it the way he likes. There's something in that that's very empowering. Than having than giving away things to people. I just think there's a little difference there. It's not always practical. People need homes now, give them some keys, but if you can involve them in the building, it's very, very empowering. Um, yeah, when I was involved with Wood Dust, a wonderful magical wood festival held at FAB9, I was so impressed with the setup there. And when I met you guys and your team, not only was it such a welcoming space, but you guys were incredibly welcoming as well. And a maker space is something relatively new in Australia. In America, they're big on it. But here, to have the opportunity to do a bit of that and a bit of that with really good equipment and support behind the person, is really exciting. I was so excited. Often when we do wood festivals, they're in showgrounds with rundown sheep sheds and cattle sheds and stuff like that, and we're all setting up in there. But wood dust at FAB9 was another whole other level, because it was all makers together in a what's the word, when it's tailor-made, in a tailor-made space. So that's what excited me. I just felt like there's a whole new future out there, and that it will become the norm for maker spaces and people gathering. And as you were talking about the other show and tells that you've had that were in person, they just sound amazing. So yeah, that was just something I would like to say, because I'm really honoured and very grateful to be invited on the show and tell, and be part of FAB9. I hope to come and see you. You're very welcome. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, great. have a phone call. 1 second. Maybe we can ask if it's the audience, if there's a way to ask questions, we can ask Pat a few questions from the audience. We have, would be maybe just give opportunity. I mean, if people want to have live questions, and Pat, how do people connect with you? Do they go to your website?
Yes, woodworkforwomen.com.au, Woodwork for Women, Facebook, Instagram. What's the other one? Not Twitter. I don't do Twitter. And just email. Yeah, website. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, thank you. We're closing down now after for Christmas, and I've got a workshop on the Australia Day weekend, the 3-day weekend. That'll be the last 3-day one. I'll be doing weekend courses, so basic beginner courses, basic furniture making, joinery courses, 2 days. So getting it squished into a weekend so people can come for the weekend is easier than the 3 days. And then having pop-up workshops and just evolving to what people's needs are. I'm getting a lot of interest from interstate, so it's really nice for people to come and stay in Byron or Mullumbimby and have a little holiday, bring their family camping or whatever. They do the workshop. And there's also so many other things up here they can do as well, spoon carving with another student of mine, or at shedding they can do carpentry and work with pallets. There's so much more here in this area. So it will evolve. I hope to do more online workshops as well. So next year it'll be a whole new repertoire.
No, thank you. Well, thank you for joining us, Pat.
Yeah.
Wonderful stories, and it's always great to learn the journey. Right, it's 25 years of teaching. You have to love it for do it for that long.
Thank you, Hans.
Yeah, so follow your dream. For audience who are listening, if you're, I actually always say this, like, if you love what you do, you don't have, it's not a job, right?
That's right.
If you have to force yourself every day out of the bed and go to the office or whatever you have to go, you might be able to do it for a few months, a few years, but I don't think people can do that for 25 years.
Thank you.